Hello, my name is Bar Scott. I live in Corvallis. My husband and I moved here about a year and a half ago. So we're new to Arts Live and we're new to town in general. I'm a singer-songwriter and a writer, and I've spent my career as a singer-songwriter in New York mostly. And I've just finished my second book called Finding a Way, and this is a memoir about songwriting. It's about my creative journey. And I'm going to read a story from that book called The Ways of Water. And the only thing you need to know about this story that the story itself won't tell you is that I have a son named Forrest who died about 18 years ago from cancer when he was 3 years old. This is a story of love called The Ways of Water. The bed and breakfast was only partially full. It was the beginning of January, and not many people wanted to be at the beach in Ocean Grove, New Jersey at that time of year. I'd been a guest at the Ocean View a couple of times before, once for a month when I wrote the first draft of my memoir, The Present Giver, and then again when I was finishing a song called More. I knew the staff pretty well by then. At tea time on that Sunday afternoon, one of the other guests introduced himself as Max, a violinist, new to America from Hungary. He'd heard I was a singer. He asked me how to get a gig in the United States. I said, the only thing I can suggest is to produce your own. I'd just finished a string of house concerts on the East Coast, and I liked them so much I wasn't sure if I'd ever sing in a public venue again. People listened. There was homemade food, a place to stay with a decent bed, and I was paid too. On top of that, I got new fans through old friends, and we all had a good time. Max was interested, so I said, we could even do a concert in this hotel. The innkeeper was within earshot and said, I love that idea, let's do it. Within the hour, Xeroxed copies of a simple poster were taped to the doors of the hotel buildings. Registered guests and their friends were invited for wine and a concert, and it was free. Everyone was asked to bring a story of their own to share. The following night, 13 people assembled around an out-of-tune piano in the main living room. Among them was a round and bubbly woman named Kathy, whose father had been offered 2 camels for her when they were visiting Egypt years before. Max, the violinist, was Kathy's fiancé. They'd met on a cruise ship the previous summer. She was sailing. He was in the orchestra. He played 3 energetic gypsy tunes for us, and he spoke a little Hungarian, too. The innkeeper, Angela, told us she was an immigrant from Poland, and that her first job in the United States was cleaning offices at night on the upper floors of a skyscraper in New York City. She'd convinced herself that the odd-looking boxes on all the desks were cameras that followed her around to make sure she did her job. She dressed for those cameras, hoping one of the security guards who was monitoring her would make a good match. She was horrified when an employee who had stayed late one night jammed a pencil into the center of the camera to sharpen it, dashing all of her dreams. There was a carpenter, too. He told us he wanted to be a dancer, so he improvised a ballet. He and his boyfriend were celebrating their first night out. And there was a state trooper, a man named Roger, who told us he was in the doghouse. His wife had given him 2 months to rearrange his priorities. All these stories were told one at a time, like campers around a campfire. We didn't know one another when we started, but like people who meet on an airplane and tell each other things they haven't told anyone else, we knew each other well by the end of the evening. My contribution was to sing More, the song I'd finished at that hotel years before. I wanted to see how people I didn't know would react to it. I don't usually write love songs, I told them, but this is a song about loving someone so much there aren't words to describe it. The room was dark with just a few leftover holiday candles flickering on the side tables. Christmas lights on the outside of the doors and windows gave the room a gentle glow. It felt like a movie set, like something dramatic and exceptional was happening. There was romance and nostalgia in the air. I said I didn't know how to describe the love I felt, so I made a list of things I had loved most in my life. Most were memories, not things at all. I thought if I sang about all of them and said, I love these things, but I love you even more, my point would be made. The room was quiet as I started to play. At the end of the night, as everyone was getting ready to leave, Roger, the state trooper with an angry spouse, approached me and said, I wish I could write words like yours. I'd send them to my wife. His eyes were bright. He smiled as though he knew how corny he sounded. You can give her mine if you want. Just tell her you wrote them, I said. We both laughed, knowing that wasn't the answer. When I thought about it later, I wondered if what he really meant to say was that he wished he loved his wife as much as I loved the person I was singing to. I didn't tell him about Forrest. In the summer when we were kids, our family went to New Hampshire where my grandparents had a house on Lake Winnipesaukee. Every morning, my grandfather would go out to the dock at sunrise and slide into the water for a swim. If I were lucky enough to be up by then, I'd go with him. I loved the quiet, the light browns and yellows of the sun reflecting on the lake. More than anything, I loved the feel of the water on my skin, cold, silky, endless. As I got older, I swam alone at night. I'd sneak out to the dock after everyone else had gone to bed, undress, and drop down the ladder to the lake. My eyes, ears, and skin felt every detail of those nights. Coolness, wetness, the sound of water lapping against the shore. Any splash I made could be heard anywhere around the lake. There were stars or no stars, clouds or no clouds, and if a full moon was hanging low in the sky, I could swim in the golden light it cast across the water. This place in New Hampshire that I called Long Lake in my lyric still appears regularly in my dreams. It's a place of safety, comfort, and contentment. When Forrest was born, we read to him at night, then I'd nurse him as he fell asleep. I ended every day with, I love you, Forrest, more than the sky. No matter where you go, no matter what you do, I will always love you. Before he got sick, my words were a reminder to him, permission for him to go out and explore his life with my unconditional support. After cancer took hold, the words had new meaning. Saying no matter where you go no longer meant a place on earth like Manhattan or Boise. It meant somewhere unknown. It meant the hereafter, wherever that was. They were hard words to say every night, but I needed to say them. I needed the hope that they could still mean Boise, while accepting the fact that they probably meant the hereafter. It was a nightly reminder of the beauty and mystery of life and death, which at the time I was obsessed with. I still say these words every now and then, hoping Forrest can hear me. For years afterwards, I could see the Hudson Valley as the sun rose in the east every morning through the windows at the foot of our bed. Pinks, blues, oranges, gold, and purple or gray. The colors and the sureness of the sun's ascent were a daily comfort in Forrest's absence, as was sleep. Sleep was a time when I might see Forrest again. His visits in my dreams were rare and often stressful. He might be dying again. He might be lost where I couldn't find him, or in a place I couldn't reach, but at least I could see him. I could feel him. I couldn't wait for sleep. And I was so glad that the terror of waiting for his death was over. Growing up, my parents' room was on the third floor under the eaves. My 4 older sisters, younger brother, and I slept on the second floor in groups of 2 until Billy got his own room. On Christmas mornings, we were up at first light, anxious to see what Santa had delivered. But there were rules. No going downstairs until everyone was up, and no peeking. My parents, having been up late, were slow to get moving, so when the tension got too great, we'd scurry up the stairs and pile up on top of them until they'd give in. When they finally got moving, we'd all go back down to the very last stair we were allowed to sit on, the one just before the turn in the stair that led to the living room where all the presents were. My father would always have to brush his teeth first, making the wait unbearable, until finally all the world was magic and wrapping paper. One of those Christmases I got my first big present. These were presents that were special, maybe a bike or a bookcase. In my case, it was a Zenith compact stereo with a turntable that held 5 LPs on a spindle and speakers that folded into the middle like the Barbie dollhouse I got at the church fair. Having my own stereo was huge. Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young had come out with Deja Vu, James Taylor with Sweet Baby James, and McCartney with Ram, all albums I still have. 2 of my older sisters had gone to college by then, so I had my own room, and I could listen to whatever I wanted for as long as I wanted. 3 Dog Nights, Joy to the World, and Blood, Sweat and Tears, Spinning Wheel were the first 2 songs I learned by heart in that room. On the rare occasion when I was the only one home, I'd pack up the stereo and take it down to the living room where we had a small grand piano. I'd try to play along with Let It Be. It's still one of my favorite songs ever. I never told anyone any of that. I'm not sure why. If I had, my mother would have suggested lessons. It's as if I liked the thrill of my secret more than the playing. It was mine. No one could tamper with it or trespass on it if they didn't know how much I loved it. It took 10 years for those longings to express themselves, 10 more until I was making my own albums and coloring the details of my dreams. One of my favorite memories is of Forrest standing at the window in our bedroom looking out at the falling snow. He was bouncing on his toes, smiling. "Look, Mommy, it's snowing." It had been falling all night and everything was white. His tiny fingers were on the windowsill. He could hardly wait to get outside. Remembering it filled me with the same kind of joy. I wanted the bridge of my song to capture that memory and the miracle that Forrest had been here at all. There was water everywhere in the song I was writing. Tears, rain, icicles, snow, water from the lake on my skin. But I hadn't seen any of it until my second trip to Ocean Grove, 5 years before we did our living room concert at the Ocean View. I'd gone to the beach to find the words to the chorus of my new song, a lyric I hoped would pull the song together. The sun was out, the beach was empty. It was October, the month I like best by the ocean. It was warm enough to go barefoot with my pants rolled up. I walked where the sand was hard, at the place where the waves turn around and go back to the ocean. This was a place where I always felt whole and good, where any sadness or worries I had fell away. I felt sure that while I was there, the words would come, and they did. Thank you for listening. I'm going to play a recording of this song and along with it some photographs of flowers I've taken in Corvallis. For me, combining the two is also a love song. It's a love letter, both to Forrest, but also to you and to this community for welcoming us here and all your lovely flowers. So thank you very much for listening. This is a song called More with an arrangement by Chris Rennie. Thank you.
More than the moonlight on Long Lake, or water on my sky as daylight breaks from the darkness that was night, glorious night. The sound of waves and sand beneath my feet, as far as my eyes will ever see. I love you more than the joy of Christmas morning and lights upon the tree. I love you more than the colors of the night, when I close my eyes and my dreams come to life. In pouring rain with booze around my feet, and soft summer rain that cools the heat. I love you more. When winter comes and water falls in sheets and icicles,